The great crystal hall of Viridian Prime sparkled with 1,000 colors as alien nobles gathered for the morning court session. Tall beings with scales that shifted like oil on water stood next to creatures made of pure light. Some had too many arms, others floated without touching the ground. All of them were staring at one thing that did not belong. Kim Jaiwan stood perfectly still next to the Emperor's throne. He was human. Just human. No glowing eyes, no extra limbs, no special powers that anyone could see. He wore a simple black uniform that looked like something a security guard might wear on any human world. At his side hung a weapon that made the alien nobles whisper to each other in shock. "Is that a kinetic projectile launcher?" asked Ambassador Yex, her voice dripping with disbelief. Her people had stopped using such crude weapons 10,000 years ago. "I believe the humans call it a gun," replied Counselor Thek, his 4 eyes all focused on the strange device. How wonderfully primitive. The whispers grew louder as more aliens noticed what everyone was talking about. Where was the Quantum Guard? Where were the Void Sentinels who could walk through walls? Where were the psionic defenders who could read minds and stop attacks before they even started? All of them had been the Emperor's bodyguards for centuries. All of them were gone now. Only the human remained. Park Miho, another human diplomat, sat in the guest section trying not to look as confused as everyone else. Even he did not understand why his species had suddenly become so important to the galactic government. Humans were new to the galaxy. They had only discovered faster than light travel 50 years ago. Most alien species had been exploring space for thousands of years. Emperor Thax Karin rose from his throne. He was 12 feet tall and made of what looked like living silver. His voice filled the room like the sound of distant thunder. "I see confusion in your faces. You wonder why I have dismissed my traditional guards." The room fell silent. Even the energy beings stopped their constant humming. "You wonder why I trust my life to a single human when I could have an army of your finest warriors protecting me." Jaiwan did not move or react. He kept his eyes on the crowd, watching for any sign of danger. His hand rested casually on his weapon, but he did not seem tense or worried. This made the alien nobles even more nervous. "Your Majesty," said Duchess Velterra, her snake-like body coiling with agitation. "Surely you do not mean to suggest that this mammal is superior to our most advanced soldiers?" Several aliens made sounds of agreement. The Kethvar were known for their perfect logical thinking. The Zephyrians could share thoughts instantly across their entire species. The Luminari could become pure energy and travel at light speed. What could a human possibly do that they could not do better? "Watch him," the Emperor said simply. Everyone turned to look at Jaiwan again. He was still standing in the same position. Still looking calm. Still appearing completely ordinary by galactic standards. "I do not see anything special," muttered General Klax, whose people had conquered half the galaxy through superior military strategy. "Exactly," said the Emperor. "You see nothing special because you are looking for the wrong things." The Emperor moved closer to his human bodyguard. "Tell me, Duchess Velterra, what do you see when you look at an enemy?" "I see their logical responses, their most probable actions, their tactical advantages," she replied proudly. "And you, General Klax?" "I see their formation, their weapons, their training methods. I calculate the best counter-strategy." The Emperor nodded slowly. "You all see patterns. You see what your evolution has taught you to see. Your minds work in ways that have been shaped by millions of years of genetic programming." He gestured toward Jaiwan. "Humans evolved differently. Their world tried to kill them every single day. Ice ages, volcanoes, earthquakes, diseases, predators, climate changes that happened too fast for normal evolution to keep up. They survived not by becoming specialists, but by becoming adapters." The alien nobles were listening now, though many still looked skeptical. "A human looks at an enemy and sees something you cannot," the Emperor continued. "They see possibilities that do not exist yet. They see solutions that have never been tried. They see ways to win that no computer has ever calculated." "Impossible," said Commander Zix of the Quantum Marines. "Our battle computers can process millions of scenarios in microseconds." "Can they process scenarios that break their own rules?" asked the Emperor. The question hung in the air like a challenge. The aliens shifted uncomfortably. Their advanced societies were built on logic, on rules, on predictable patterns. That was how they had become so successful across the galaxy. "Humans call it thinking outside the box," the Emperor explained. "They make up new boxes when the old ones do not work." Young Prince Callow laughed, a sound like glass breaking. "You are saying that primitive thinking is superior to advanced logic?" "I am saying," the Emperor replied, his silver form growing brighter, "that when the impossible happens, Only humans seem to think it might be possible after all. Jaiwan finally moved. He turned his head slightly to look at the prince. Just a small movement, but it made several aliens step backward. There was something in the humans' eyes that they could not understand. Not anger, not fear, not calculation. Something else entirely. Your Majesty speaks truth, Jaiwan said quietly. His voice was calm and ordinary, but somehow it made the entire room feel smaller. We are not stronger or faster or smarter than you. But we are very, very stubborn. The alien nobles did not know what to make of this statement. Stubbornness was not usually considered a military advantage. The emperor smiled, an expression that looked strange on his metallic features. Indeed. And that, my friends, is why you should all be very, very afraid. The diplomatic reception was going well until it wasn't. Ambassador Li Sujin from the human delegation was making polite conversation with a group of floating energy beings when the lights suddenly went out. Emergency power kicked in a second later, bathing the great hall in red light that made everything look like it was covered in blood. Screams echoed from the corridors outside. Not alien communication sounds or translation errors. Real screams of terror and pain. Security breach in sectors 7 through 12, announced the palace computer in its calm voice, as if this was just another minor inconvenience. Umbral collective forces detected. All personnel please remain calm. The alien nobles did not remain calm. The Kethvar immediately formed defensive circles, their scales turning dark as they prepared for logical combat. The Zephyrians began their hive-mind connection, trying to coordinate a group response. The Luminari started glowing brighter, preparing to blind any attackers with pure light. Jaiwan did something different. He closed his eyes and listened. What is he doing? Hissed Duchess Velterra, her snake body coiled tight with fear. Why is he not preparing weapons? The first shadow appeared near the main entrance. It looked like a piece of darkness that had decided to walk around on its own. Then another shadow appeared by the windows. Then more by the side doors. Within seconds, the great hall was full of moving darkness that should not exist. The Umbral Collective were the galaxy's most feared assassins. They could become pure shadow, invisible to most sensors and immune to energy weapons. Their technology was so advanced that they could phase in and out of reality itself. Governments paid them millions of credits to make problems disappear forever. Commander Yex of the Quantum Marines raised her plasma rifle and fired at the nearest shadow. The bright blue energy bolt passed right through the darkness like it was shooting at empty air. Impossible. Nothing can resist quantum plasma. General Klax tried his gravity weapons next. The shadows just flowed around the gravitational fields like water flowing around rocks. His most advanced technology was useless. The shadows began moving faster now, converging on Emperor Thaxkarin's throne. The alien nobles scattered in panic. Some tried to fight, others tried to run, but none of their weapons or abilities seemed to work against enemies made of living darkness. Jaiwan opened his eyes and smiled. He drew his simple kinetic weapon, the one the aliens had been laughing about all morning. While plasma bolts and gravity beams failed around him, he aimed at what looked like empty space and pulled the trigger. The sound was different from the high-tech weapons. Just a simple bang like a door slamming. But one of the shadows suddenly stumbled and became solid. Black blood splattered on the crystal floor. How? Gasped Ambassador Yex. How can primitive projectiles harm them when our advanced weapons cannot? Jaiwan was already moving, not running toward cover like everyone else, but walking calmly between the shadows. He fired again, and another assassin materialized with a cry of pain. Then again. And again. He's not aiming at their shadow forms, whispered Li Sujin, watching in amazement from behind an overturned table. He's aiming at where they will be when they become solid to attack. The aliens stared in confusion. The shadows could phase in and out of reality at will. How could anyone predict when they would become solid? How could anyone know where they would appear? Jaiwan seemed to know exactly where each shadow would strike before it moved. When one shadow flowed toward the Emperor's left side, Jaiwan was already there with his weapon ready. When another tried to attack from above, Jaiwan looked up and fired at the precise spot where it would have to become physical to land. This is impossible, muttered General Klax. No computer can calculate probability matrices that complex. The variables are too numerous. He's not calculating, said Park Miho, another human who was pressed against the wall trying to stay out of the way. He's reading them. The aliens didn't understand what that meant. Reading them? The shadows had no body language, no heat signatures, no electromagnetic fields to analyze. They were pure darkness. But Jaiwan was watching things the advanced aliens couldn't see. The way air moved when something invisible passed through it. The tiny sounds of breathing that had to happen even when someone was mostly shadow. The small patterns in how each assassin moved that showed their training and their habits. Humans had learned to hunt animals that were faster, stronger, and better camouflaged than they were. They had learned to track enemies through forests and across mountains using signs that most creatures would never notice. All of that ancient hunting knowledge was still buried in their brains, waiting to be used. Within 5 minutes, 8 Umbral assassins lay dead or wounded on the crystal floor. The survivors had retreated back into the shadows, but now they were afraid. Their perfect stealth technology was useless against someone who hunted by reading patterns instead of relying on sensors. The great hall fell silent except for the sound of Jaiwan reloading his weapon. The alien nobles emerged from their hiding places, staring at the human bodyguard with new eyes. "Impossible," whispered Commander Yex again, but this time her voice was full of awe instead of disbelief. Emperor Thaxcorin's metallic laughter filled the hall. "You see? Your sensors told you there was nothing to shoot at. Your computers said the probability of success was 0. Your logic said it could not be done." He gestured toward his human guardian. But Jaiwan did not ask his sensors. He did not consult a computer. He did not check the logic tables. He simply looked with his eyes and listened with his ears and trusted his instincts. The aliens were beginning to understand something that frightened them more than the shadow assassins ever could. Humans didn't need advanced technology to be dangerous. They just needed to be human. The silence in the great hall felt heavy like a thick blanket. The alien nobles stood frozen, staring at the bodies of the Umbral assassins scattered across the crystal floor. Some were still trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Others were beginning to realize something that made their blood run cold. Emperor Thaxcorin stepped down from his throne, his silver form reflecting the red emergency lights. Each footstep rang like a bell in the quiet room. The alien nobles automatically moved aside to create a path, but their eyes never left Jaiwan, who was calmly checking his weapon. "You want answers," the Emperor said, his voice filling every corner of the hall. "You want to know how a primitive human defeated assassins that your most advanced warriors could not even touch?" Duchess Velterra coiled nervously, her scales shifting colors. "Your Majesty, we simply do not understand. Our weapons are powered by quantum energy. Our armor can deflect starship cannons. Our computers can process battle scenarios faster than light itself travels. And that," said the Emperor, "is exactly the problem." He gestured toward the dead assassins. "Tell me, General Clax, how would your people have fought these shadows?" The general straightened, proud to show his knowledge. "Standard Protocol 77 Alpha. Deploy gravitational nets in a hexagonal pattern. Use plasma sweeps to force materialization. Coordinate with psionic scanners to predict movement vectors." "Textbook perfect," the Emperor agreed. "And completely useless as we just saw." Several aliens shifted uncomfortably. They had all been thinking the same tactical thoughts during the attack. "Commander Yex, your people have fought the Umbral Collective before. What was your battle plan?" "Quantum disruption fields to interrupt their phase shifting," she replied stiffly. "Energy dampeners to prevent shadow manipulation. Predictive algorithms to calculate strike patterns." "Also useless," the Emperor noted. "Ambassador Crix, your hive mind species could have coordinated perfectly. What would you have done?" The insectoid ambassador clicked his mandibles nervously. "Collective consciousness analysis. Shared tactical processing. Unified response protocols based on optimal efficiency calculations." "Still useless." The Emperor's silver eyes swept across the assembled nobles. "Do you see the pattern? Every single one of you thought like a computer. You tried to solve the problem using advanced technology and logical systems." He turned to face Jaiwan, who was now standing quietly with his hands behind his back. "But humans evolved on a world that did not care about logic. Earth threw ice ages at them when they had just learned to make fire. It sent earthquakes when they built their first cities. It created new diseases faster than they could develop medicine." The aliens listened with growing unease. Most species had evolved on stable worlds with predictable challenges. "Humans learned something that you have forgotten," the Emperor continued. "They learned that the universe does not follow rules. It pretends to follow rules and then it breaks them just to see what happens." Young Prince Callow made a sound of disagreement. "But logic is universal, Your Majesty. Mathematical principles work the same way throughout the galaxy. Physics cannot be ignored. Can't it?" The Emperor smiled, an expression that looked strange on his metallic features. "Jaiwan, please explain to the prince how you defeated shadow beings that exist outside normal physics." Jaiwan stepped forward, his movement causing several aliens to tense. "I watched them breathe," he said simply. The aliens stared at him in confusion. "Impossible," declared Commander Yex. "Shadow phase beings do not need to breathe. They exist partially outside normal spacetime." "Everything breathes," Jaiwan replied calmly. "Maybe not air, maybe not the way we do, but everything that lives has a rhythm. A pattern. Even shadows." He pointed to one of the dead assassins. "That one always paused for exactly 1.3 seconds before attacking. This one here always shifted left before going right. The tall one by the door held his breath when he was about to strike." The aliens looked at the bodies, trying to see what Jaiwan had seen. They saw only darkness and blood. "Your computers were trying to calculate infinite variables," Jaiwan continued. "But I just watched for the things that stayed the same. Habits. Patterns. The little mistakes that everyone makes when they think nobody is watching." Li Sujin, the human diplomat, spoke up from her hiding spot. "It's like hunting deer in the forest. You don't track where the deer is now. You figure out where it's going to be." "Exactly," said the Emperor, his voice growing excited. "Humans don't just adapt to their environment. They adapt their thinking. When logic fails, they try logic. When technology fails, they use intuition. When science fails, they make educated guesses." General Clax shook his head in disbelief. "You're saying that guessing is superior to calculation?" "I'm saying," the Emperor replied, "that calculation only works when you know all the variables. But the universe keeps creating new variables just to stay interesting." He walked over to stand beside Jaiwan. "Your species spent millions of years perfecting your abilities. The Kethvar developed perfect logical thinking. The Zephyrians created flawless hive coordination. The Luminari mastered energy manipulation." The aliens nodded proudly. These were their greatest achievements. "But perfection," the Emperor said quietly, "is a cage. When you become perfect at one thing, you lose the ability to do anything else. You become predictable." The words hit the alien nobles like a physical blow. Predictable. The one thing no warrior ever wanted to be. "Humans never became perfect at anything," the Emperor continued. "They remained flexible, adaptable, unpredictable. They kept the ability to surprise even themselves." The Great Hall fell silent again, but this silence was different. It was the silence of beings who were beginning to understand something terrifying about the universe they thought they knew. "That's why you fear them," the Emperor said softly. "Not because they're stronger or smarter or better armed. You fear them because they can do things that shouldn't be possible. And in a universe where impossible things happen every day, that makes them the most dangerous species alive." The abandoned mining station of Kepler-7 floated in the darkness between stars, forgotten by most of the galaxy for over a century. Its corridors were cold and empty, the perfect place for a meeting that could never be traced back to the participants. In the old command center, holographic projectors cast eerie blue light on faces that should never have been seen together. Matriarch O Youngjin of House Velkarn was the first to speak. Her serpentine form coiled around the central table like a living rope, her scales dark with anger. "The Emperor has lost his mind. This obsession with humans will destroy everything our civilization has built." General Park Jae-min of the rebel Kethvar nodded his massive head. His species prided themselves on logical thinking, and nothing about the current situation made logical sense. One human bodyguard where we once had entire armies. One primitive mind advising on galactic policy. It is madness. Prince Kallo of the Zephyrian Swarmlords buzzed with agitation, his insect-like features twisted in disgust. "My people have shared thoughts across thousands of worlds for 50,000 years. Now the Emperor asks us to consider the opinions of a species that cannot even read each other's minds." The gathering included representatives from 12 of the most powerful houses in the galaxy. Each had come in secret, using unmarked ships and false identification codes. All of them were united by one belief: humanity's influence on the Emperor was a disease that needed to be cut out before it spread further. "The other nobles whisper in the corridors," said Duchess Yexandra, her energy form flickering with barely contained rage. "They say the human made the impossible look easy. They say maybe we should listen to these primitive creatures." "Exactly the problem," hissed O Youngjin. "Fear is making them forget who we are. We are the masters of this galaxy. We have conquered solar systems while humans were still discovering fire." Commander Veltox stepped forward, his crystalline body reflecting the holographic light like a living prism. "I have brought solutions to our problem. 3 teams of the most elite warriors in known space." The conspirators leaned closer as Veltox activated a new hologram. 3 figures materialized in the blue light, each more terrifying than the last. The Void Stalkers, Veltox announced, showing a figure that seemed to exist only partially in normal space. They can phase between dimensions at will. No physical attack can touch them. They can appear anywhere, anytime without warning. The assembled nobles murmured their approval. The Void Stalkers were legendary. They had assassinated enemies by reaching through walls and crushing hearts from inside rib cages. The Plasma Wraiths, Veltox continued, displaying a being made entirely of living energy. Pure plasma held together by quantum fields. They can flow through any gap, survive in the vacuum of space, and generate temperatures hot enough to melt starship hulls. Even more impressive murmurs from the crowd. Plasma Wraiths had once destroyed an entire battle fleet by simply flowing through their hulls and melting their power cores from within. And finally, Veltox said with obvious pride, the crystalline juggernauts. The final hologram showed a warrior that looked like it had been carved from a single massive diamond. 12 feet tall, with arms thick as tree trunks and skin harder than starship armor. Their bodies can withstand direct hits from antimatter cannons, Veltox explained. They have never been defeated in single combat. Not once in 3,000 years of recorded history. Prince Callow's mandibles clicked with satisfaction. 3 perfect killers. Each representing the pinnacle of galactic evolution. Each immune to the attacks that lesser beings might use. The human will never see them coming, added General Park Jae-min. His primitive senses cannot detect dimensional phase shifting or energy form infiltration. His crude weapons cannot harm crystalline armor or plasma bodies. Oh Youngjin's eyes glowed with anticipation. When do they strike? Tomorrow, Veltox replied. During the morning court session. Maximum witnesses to see the human's failure. Maximum impact on the Emperor's reputation. The conspirators began planning the details. The Void Stalkers would attack first, phasing through the palace walls to strike from impossible angles. While the human was distracted, the Plasma Wraiths would flow through the ventilation systems to attack the Emperor directly. If somehow both failed, the crystalline juggernauts would smash through the main doors like unstoppable battering rams. 3 different attack vectors, summarized Duchess Yexandra. 3 different types of enemies that require completely different defense strategies. No single warrior could possibly handle all of them at once. Especially not a human, laughed Prince Callow. Their reaction times are too slow, their weapons too primitive, their minds too simple to process multiple simultaneous threats. The meeting continued for several hours as they refined their plan. Every detail was considered, every possible failure point addressed. The conspirators were among the most intelligent beings in the galaxy, and their plan reflected that intelligence. The human will die, declared Oh Youngjin with certainty. The Emperor will see that his faith was misplaced. The natural order will be restored. And if the Emperor refuses to dismiss the remaining humans from court? Asked General Park Jae-min. The conspirators exchanged dark looks. They all knew the answer to that question even if none wanted to speak it aloud. Then we will find a new Emperor, Oh Youngjin said quietly. One who remembers that this galaxy belongs to the advanced species, not to primitive mammals from a backwater world. As the meeting broke up and the conspirators departed in their unmarked ships, none of them noticed the small observation drone hidden in the asteroid field nearby. None of them detected the passive sensors recording their conversations. None of them realized that their perfect, logical plan had been observed from the very beginning. After all, they were thinking like computers again. And computers rarely consider the possibility that someone might be watching them while they plot in the darkness between stars. The morning court session began like any other. Alien nobles filed into the great crystal hall, their conversations creating a symphony of clicks, hisses, and harmonic vibrations. Emperor Thax Karin took his place on the throne while Kim Jaiwan stood beside him, looking as ordinary as ever in his simple black uniform. None of the conspirators were present. They had found excuses to be elsewhere when their hired killers struck, giving themselves perfect alibis. The attack would look like random violence, tragic but unpreventable. At exactly 10:47 Standard Time, the first Void Stalker phased through the eastern wall. The creature materialized halfway, its form flickering between dimensions like a bad hologram. Most of the court couldn't even see it clearly. It moved toward the Emperor's throne with confident, predatory steps, secure in the knowledge that no physical attack could touch its phase-shifted form. Jaiwan was already moving before the assassin fully materialized. Not toward the threat, but toward a control panel built into the wall. His fingers danced across buttons that most people assumed were just decorative lights. The Void Stalker suddenly screamed as gravitational forces grabbed its partially phased body and slammed it back into normal space. The creature found itself trapped in a localized gravity well, unable to phase shift while being crushed by forces equivalent to a small moon. "Impossible," gasped Ambassador Yex from the crowd. How did he know about the palace's defensive systems? Jaiwan had spent weeks learning every system in the palace, not just the obvious security measures but the environmental controls, the decorative fountains, even the cleaning robots. Humans, it seemed, were very good at finding new uses for old tools. The second and third Void Stalkers appeared simultaneously, one dropping from the ceiling and another rising through the floor. They had learned from their companion's mistake and stayed fully materialized, thinking solid form would protect them from gravity manipulation. They were wrong. Jaiwan activated the fire suppression system. Suddenly the air filled with thousands of tiny metallic particles designed to smother flames. The particles stuck to the assassin's skin and equipment, making them visible to every sensor in the room. More importantly, the metallic dust conducted electricity beautifully. Jaiwan's next button press sent controlled electrical pulses through the sprinkler system. The Void Stalkers convulsed as currents ran through their bodies via the conductive particles. They dropped to the floor, twitching and helpless. "He turned a fire safety system into a weapon," whispered Li Sujin in amazement. "Who thinks like that?" The answer, apparently, was humans. The plasma wraiths came next, flowing through the ventilation system like living lava. Their energy forms were beautiful and terrifying, shifting between brilliant red and electric blue as they moved. They could generate heat intense enough to melt steel, and their quantum-coherent bodies were immune to most forms of attack. Jaiwan pulled out what looked like a simple handheld device, the kind technicians used to test electronic equipment. The aliens watched in confusion as he pointed it at the approaching energy beings and pressed a button. Electromagnetic pulse. Basic, crude, primitive technology that most advanced civilizations had stopped using centuries ago. But the plasma wraiths were held together by quantum fields that relied on electromagnetic coherence. The EMP didn't hurt them exactly. It just made them forget how to stay organized. The beautiful, deadly energy forms collapsed into harmless static discharge, their quantum consciousness scattered like leaves in a storm. They fizzled against the walls and floor, no more dangerous than the afterglow of a lightning strike. "A maintenance tool," breathed General Clax in disbelief. He defeated living plasma with a maintenance tool. The final attackers were the most confident. The three crystalline juggernauts smashed through the main entrance like walking mountains, their diamond-hard bodies reflecting the crystal hall's lights in dazzling patterns. Each step left cracks in the floor. Their very presence made the air vibrate with barely contained power. These creatures had never been defeated in combat. Their crystalline armor could deflect antimatter beams and resist temperatures found in stellar cores. What could primitive kinetic weapons possibly do against such perfection? Jaiwan smiled and pulled out a small device that looked like a music player. "He's going to sing to them?" asked Prince Callow nervously. "Not sing. Sonic resonance. Every crystal had a specific frequency that would cause it to vibrate. Push that frequency hard enough, and even the strongest crystal would shatter like glass hit by an opera singer's high note. The device emitted a sound so pure and focused that most ears couldn't even hear it. But the crystalline juggernauts heard it with their entire bodies. Their perfect armor, their greatest strength, became their weakness as the resonance frequency traveled through their crystalline structure. The first juggernaut's chest plate developed a hairline crack. The second stumbled as fractures spread through its legs. The third tried to cover its ears, but the vibration was coming from inside its own body. All three collapsed simultaneously, their invincible forms cracking apart like eggshells. The most feared warriors in the galaxy were defeated by physics and a device any human music student could have built. The great hall fell silent except for the sound of crystal fragments tinkling on the floor. Emperor Thaxcarin rose from his throne and began to laugh. The sound started low and built until it filled the entire space, echoing off the walls like thunder. "Now you see," he said to the stunned nobles. "This is why they terrify you. Not because they're stronger or faster or better armed. Because they look at your greatest strengths and figure out how to make them into weaknesses." He gestured toward Jaiwan, who was calmly reloading his weapon as if nothing unusual had happened. "They don't fight the way you expect them to fight. They don't use the weapons you expect them to use. They don't even follow the rules you expect them to follow." The alien nobles stared at the human bodyguard with a mixture of awe and terror. They were beginning to understand something that would haunt their dreams for generations to come. Humans didn't just think outside the box. They didn't even acknowledge that boxes existed.